To order for the regular council meeting Tuesday, May the 2nd at 2 o'clock, despite the fact that our clock is running fast. Just kidding. I do want to begin by acknowledging that we are fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Símpcwemc, who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. We're going to move to any introduction of late items. I think we've got 3.1, item 17.1, Bylaw 282, 2023, the 2023 annual tax rate bylaw. Do we have that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And it was just a late item as we didn't have the documentation on time due to requirements from the province.
Okay, and just to clarify that for the audience, a lot of the tax information, we do require final assessments that come in from the government. They came in late Friday, so we've got a super dedicated team that actually stayed Friday night and into the weekend to be able to get us a report. So in advance, I want to extend my gratitude towards you for that. Any other late items?
Yes, I guess just as a late item, we're moving item 16.1 into the delegations and presentation as item 7.1.
I thought we would do that under adoption of the agenda. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's do that. So if there's no other late items and nothing for in camera, I just want to make sure, Council. Great. And just before we proceed any further, I do want to extend the regrets of Mayor Merlin Blackwell. He's unable to be with us due to personal reasons. And Councillor Bratton has had to go down to the island to see her mum, and Councillor Mackenzie has been delayed at work. So just want to extend those regrets. Moving on to item 0.4, the adoption of the agenda. There is a recommendation that we move item. Yep, go ahead, Councillor Herring.
I'd like to make the recommendation that we amend the agenda to include item 16.1 as 7.1 delegations and presentations and adopt the agenda as amended.
Second by Councillor Frizzle. Any other discussion on that? Great. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item number 5, any declaration of known conflict of interest or pecuniary interest? No land or anything anybody owns? Nope. Okay, that's great. Do we have our TNRD director online by chance?
We do not.
Okay, that's great. So that's going to lead us right into item number 7, which has been moved to 16.1. Mr. Mario Parodi from BDO. Please come forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here again today. We are here to present the audit results and the financial statements of the District of Clearwater for the year ended December 31st, 2022. Our audit as of today is substantially complete. The only final item that we require is a motion of council to approve the financial statements as required by the Community Charter and the Canadian Auditing Standards. You have a full copy of the draft financial statements in your package, but my plan is to walk you through a brief PowerPoint presentation so it's easier for everyone else to follow along that's in the room, having an audience today. So if it is council's pleasure to approve these financial statements, we are proposing a clean audit opinion. So these statements do present fairly the results of the District of Clearwater for the year ended December 31st, 2022. Okay. And if we're good, we'll move on to the next page. So we'll start at your statement of financial position. This is a snapshot of all of your assets and liabilities that you have at the end of December 2022 as compared to 2021. And what we see is that we saw some stable growth this year in the district, and we'll talk about the results as we move forward. But we have 14.2 million sitting in our financial assets, up from 10.1 million. This is all the cash you have or cash that will be coming in. Our liabilities, including our debt with the MFA, which I look at as your mortgage, was reduced from 2.5 million to $2 million. And then our net financial assets, which is a measure of if we take all the cash we have and coming in and deduct all of our liabilities, where do we sit? Think of it as your cash in the bank. And we're sitting at 11.9 million, up from 7.17 million last year. We also have our tangible capital assets, which is all the amounts that you've invested in your infrastructure in the past, less amortization, sitting at 40.6 million versus 39.8 last year. Couple of larger projects that happened this year. We had 1.2 million in the Parks Drive project, and then also the Dutch Lake project at $400,000. If we move to our next slide, we have all of our revenues and comparisons of budget to actual. Your total revenues exceeded your budget this year. They came in at 11.9 million versus a budget of 10.5 million. And the main areas that we want to focus on are where we have big swings. The big one in the middle with the big red budget where we had a shortfall was government grants. They came in at 3.1 million versus a budget of 4.3. And that's really just because of timing of capital projects, whether funding came in, whether the project was able to go forward. There's always delays there. But when we're under budget in this manner, that means our expenses are also under budget. So it's a net nil impact on you. The other one, as we move further to the right, is donation revenue. We have $2 million in donation revenue from the community, Wells Gray Community Forest Corporation versus a budget of $1 million. And then the last one, as we move left to the center, we see public health significantly exceeded budget, and that's because of the septage receiving systems, and that, of course, was driven largely by TMX. And if we move to the next slide, we can just see this pie chart just kind of shows where your revenues are and where they're coming from. You can see taxation making up a quarter of your revenues. If we take out the grants, really your property taxation is about a third of your revenues as well.
If I can just stop you there, and that's been a fairly steady pattern for the district.
Yes, council is that has been in line with that for the past several years.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and moving on to the next slide. If we look at our total expenses, expenses came in at $6.3 million versus a budget of $8.8 million. And a couple of things where we were had shortfalls. There, on general government, we were underspent, and that was just because of delays in getting the Wells Gray Community Forest Commission donations out, which we know that that is being looked at right now. And then transportation services, we saw that that was underspent as well, but that was just due to the nature of capacity within public works, delays with supply chains, and that sort of thing. The last major shortfall was under planning and development. There was the fire management project that has been delayed into 2023 and will be proceeding this year. And if we move on to the next slide, again, we just show a quick breakdown of expenses by type, showing that when we have $6 million in expenses, less than a third of that is going to wages. The remainder is going into all your operating costs and goods and contracts, as well as amortization. And if we move on to the next slide, we want to talk about your surplus for the year. And when we look at the surplus for the year, we came in with a surplus of 5.6 million. And while it's not on this screen, there was a budgeted surplus of 1.8 million almost. And so this is where I remind you that we don't exactly align with how the community charter requires you to budget versus how the financial statements require you to present it. So in the community charter, when you're doing your budget bylaw, in the community charter, when we go in and we prepare it and we do our budget bylaw, which we'll be reviewing this afternoon, things like your acquisition of your capital assets. So your infrastructure projects are an expense. On the financial statements, they're an asset, not an expense. Reserve transfers are revenue expenses in your budget. On the financial statements, they don't show up in your results from operations. So that's why we have a difference. But if we look at this slide, we get about as close to as we can on how we did against our plan. We start with our surplus of 5.6 million, deduct our capital projects of 2.7 million, add back 1.8 million of amortization of capital assets, which is not cash and not being funded, and we end up with a change in your financial assets of 4.7 million. So this was the growth in your surplus for the year. And if we move on to the next slide, what it really talks about now is what that growth in surplus means. And so we have a total surplus of 52.6 million, which is a very large number. And a lot of people will ask, well, we don't have 52.6 million in our bank account. What's happening? The first line, investment in tangible capital assets. In the public sector accounting standards, we have to account for how much we spent in our community, less depreciation, less what we owe on it. and show that as part of our surplus. It's the equity in our home is how I have an analogy for it. So if we take that number out, we're left with $12 million really in the bank. And that's very similar to that number that I talked about in our first page. And of that $12 million, $3.7 million is sitting in unrestricted funds, which is what management has available to keep the lights on, pay the staff as long as it's approved within the annual budget. And then we have $8.5 million in our reserve funds. And if we go to the last slide, this slide is a listing of all of your reserve funds that make up the $8.5 million. A couple items to note. The Wells Gray Community Forest Commission reserve is sitting at $3.7 million. That is up $2 million from last year because, of course, we talked about the donation was received and we didn't have the cash going out. So that money has been separately tracked in here. We also have the septage receiving reserve at $1.5 million, which was increased by $500,000 this year because of the planned transfer in your budget that resulted from the additional revenue from Trans Mountain. But these are the buckets that you have for future spending in terms of capital and other projects. And so I will stop there and ask Council if you have any questions on the financial results.
Councillor Matheson?
I think it's been well presented, and yeah, I have no questions.
Councillor Frizzle? Councillor Herring?
Nope, we've seen this before. It looks great. Thank you so much. And, you know, always good to get an accurate picture from the audit for sure. So thanks for your hard work.
Oh, I appreciate that. Before I move on, I would also like to comment on the audit results and also in particular, thank your management team. You know, with the new management team this year, we were required to take a bit of a deeper dive than we do in most normal years, not because we have concerns over management, but we want to make sure that we look at the skill set of your new team versus your policies and make sure that things aren't slipping through. Our testing was performed. We didn't have any anomalies that we needed to bring forward to council, and we were satisfied with the results of our testing. So a big thank you to Ms. Klassen and the rest of the team.
And just for the benefit, we do have the class from TRU. I don't know if you want to talk about maybe what we've talked about earlier is how the district is 14 years old and now we're in this next stage and what it looks like to adult and how your role is to help us guide towards that pathway.
Yeah, so what we were speaking about earlier is the fact that the district has been on a journey. And when we see the growth since incorporation back in 2007 to where you are today, it's that transition from adolescence to adulting where we've been kind of trying to save up to get out of the house, to try to grow our community. And now we're at a place where, you know, there's been some fortunate things like TMX and the septage coming through that has allowed the savings accounts to get bigger. And now we have a management team that is able to grow and also focus on let's do more planning in the future and start looking at asset management planning, looking at what does our infrastructure needs look like 5, 10, 20 years out, looking at our reserve policies and developing those reserve policies to align with what we need in terms of if we have you know, a reservoir that needs to be built in 10 years, how much savings do we need to have 10 years out in order to make that happen? And so we're starting to see that there. And I want to encourage council to continue to work with management on that because it's an important next step in the journey.
And my final question, if you wanted to make a comment on, is where we've stood on a philosophy of debt and where we stand and what that might look like moving forward.
So when it comes to debt, it's interesting. The district as a newer municipality has historically shied away from debt. And I know that the community and previous councils have been very adverse to taking on debt. And so what we're seeing now, and if we want to take a step back and look at the inflation environment that we're in right now, inflation is sitting at 6.7% as a general rate, but we know that embedded in that 6.7% is consumer goods, discretionary spending that is probably dragging that rate down because people can't afford to spend on those items. When we look at what the district needs to spend on, you're spending on fuel, propane, construction materials, asphalt, all those things that have higher rates of inflation than the 6.7%. And I bring that up because we're seeing that, you know, if a capital project gets delayed a year, or 2 years. It could be a 10 to 30 to 50% increase in the cost right now in the environment that we have. And so looking forward, it's going to be, can we go and do some of these capital projects with no debt? Yes, there'll be grants out there that'll help it, but at what point do we need to borrow again? And so when you're looking at the asset management planning and your reserves, that should be factored in as well, because in all likelihood, there will need to be debt if major projects come up.
And to that, to the analogy of the assets in your house, is the fact that there has been a philosophy and that we do now have those assets, where if we had borrowed heavily, we might not have the ability to move forward. So I think that the district debt is 407,000. Is that correct? Or
300.
300. Last year it was the 400. So if we've got 300,000, as somebody said, oh my gosh, the district has less debt than what I have on a mortgage for my house. And so that purposeful vision moving forward. And now as we move into larger projects, we haven't incurred that debt, so we can move forward, so we can take on some larger projects and help with the community development.
Yeah, and if I can just add one other comment for the benefit of everyone in the room, it's important to understand that, you know, a local government can't just simply borrow as much as they want. There is a borrowing formula that the province requires that you submit on an annual basis that tells you how much you can borrow, which is based on what your sustainable operating revenues are. So there are some checks and balances in terms of making sure that even if council has bigger eyes than what they can afford, the province has rules that prevent that from happening.
So no Mustang convertible.
No Mustang convertible. This year's flavor has been whether or not we got spray parks.
Okay, great, thanks. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it, but there is a recommendation under 16.1 that council accepts the 2022 audited financial statements as presented by Mary Prody, partner, BDO Canada LLP at the May 2nd, 2023 rate. Thank you.
I'll move that recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Frizzle. Any discussion on that? I think it's just to say once again to your team, you know, for coming out and really being a partner with the District of Clearwater and helping us set the charts forward, being just excellent partners with our staff here, and also just very special thanks to Director Klassen and your crew. Together, it's really creating such an articulate vision financially. So thank you. With that, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming up. So we're now moving on to item number 8.1, minutes of the regular council meeting held April the 18th. Any errors and omissions? No? Councillor Frizzle?
As presented.
Seconded by Councillor Herring. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 9, adoption of minutes and committee meetings. This is the final chapters of the Cemetery Advisory Committee. Are there more to come?
Yes, there are a couple more from other committees as well. So there's one more batch, I believe.
There's one more batch. Okay. Certainly reading through, and we've got a number of community members in the audience, but the Cemetery Advisory Committee has been meeting now for about 2 years, 18 months maybe? 18 months. Very, very thoughtful overview. This has been something that a project that's been a bit of a passion project for the community as a whole, and this committee is taking on, and I think the work that they're doing is quite exciting. So, recommendation that the minutes, great.
I'll move that all.
Great, thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Frizzle. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Development and zoning, unfinished business, reconsideration of tabled items, the staff report for the official community plan project. Councillor Herring, any comments on this?
Just that we should keep it in deferred. The point was to have the discussion when the mayor's here, and unfortunately he's not here. So
Yeah, and I think that just to follow up is that the importance of the community plan as it relates to some of the new government initiatives that are coming forward. Even being at the Southern Interior Local Government Association AGM last week, it really highlighted how having that OCP in place is a paramount. Now, do we need a whole fresh start? I think it's going to be really important to hear from the mayor. He does sit as member at large for the Union of BC Municipalities, and getting his input on what would a new OCP look like? How do we form that? What can we use? And I think that we're still quite keen on leaning for a consultant to come in and just talk about that. So I think we're going to leave that under unfinished business. We have no deferred items. Public and statutory hearings. This is where we get to the fun stuff. This is my opening statement, right? Okay, this is the opening statement for a public hearing. At this point in time, this is a reminder to council to put away their cell phones and to ensure no further information is being received. The public hearing is being convened under the provisions of the British Columbia Local Government Act to hear submissions related to zoning amendment bylaw number 270, 2023, and zoning amendment bylaw number 280, 2023. Bylaws number 270 would rezone the northern portion of a parcel on Norfolk Road, legally described as Lot 4, District Lot 2619, KDYD Plan 2225, accept Plans 29581 and KAP 92047. PID 0114048-719 from RT, Compact Residential, to MHP Manufactured Home Park. Bylaws number 280 would rezone a property at 428 Sunshine Valley, legally described as that part of District Lot 1682, lying north of Plan H558 KDYD, except Parcel A, DD A9608, and Plan 27427 PID 013164066 from RL1, Rural, to CR1, Country Residential, to enable a future subdivision. This is the public's opportunity to make presentations to council. All persons present who believe that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard. I would ask those members of the public who wish to speak to please commence your address to this council by clearly stating your name. The main function of this public hearing is to listen to your views. Council will not debate the matter of the proposed bylaws with individual citizens, but members of council may ask questions of you following your presentation. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views heard. Your only opportunity to comment on the proposed bylaw is during the public hearing, as members of council may not receive further submissions, verbal or in writing, after the close of this public hearing. I'll ask the corporate officer to confirm publication of the notice of public hearing as required by legislation, and if there are any written submissions for council's consideration.
Yes, Acting Mayor, we do have confirmation of publication in the April 20th and April 27th Clearwater Times, and we've received no written submissions, and Alex will speak on if he has received any.
No from there. Okay, so we have no written submissions that have been received. I'm going to call for the first time. Is there anybody present who wishes to make a presentation to council? Great. Thanks.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm Gary Arsenault. I live in Salmon Arm. My wife and I bought the property on Norfolk Road about 14 or 15 years ago. We rezoned it in 2013 to, it was zoned R1, large lot residential. We rezoned it to the new zone which was created for this, which is smaller lots. And we had intended to do a seniors housing project. And we had got it, once we had it rezoned, we started to put the process together in 2015, and then we were approached by Trans Mountain they want to do the pipeline. So they essentially got us under contract and tied us up until this year. So we kind of missed the market. We couldn't really do anything until they finished. And we re-evaluated, and I've had meetings with the mayor and your CAO and the regional district, and Clearwater is kind of facing a couple challenges. So we're still going to keep the property on the south side of the Trans Mountain pipeline, the same zone it is, which is quite a small lots. We're in the process of subdividing it into 27 Bearland strata lots for a community of smaller homes. So, well, actually you can build any size home on there, but the lots are small. On the north side, that's what this hearing is for. We are separating those lots. So now it will be, we're rezoning it to a modular home park, or you call it a manufactured home park. The lots will probably be bigger than what the existing zone is, and the main reason we're rezoning it is we cannot, with the zone we created, we can't put modular homes. You can put them on any other residential zoning in Clearwater, but not that one. So we need a little bit bigger lots to make sure units get in and out. It's not a trailer park. It'll be like, these are homes like any other home, but they would be set on foundations or on bearing posts, etc. They, when looking at what the market needs, there's Clearwater seems to need three things: affordable housing, number one, housing period, number two, and number three, they're short of trades. So to be able to build the houses, there's a difficulty to get carpenters and plumbers and all the other things. I'm sure you know what it's like here. So this would be the fastest way to build affordable housing. Some of these units would be, people could buy the lot and buy their own unit. There will only be new units going in. It's not going to be moving in old units. And there'll also be, there will be lots for people to rent the pad, but they will own their own home. So this will be able to, so younger families or first-time home buyers would be able to buy a house for a lot less than, and just live on a rented lot. So it'd be affordable for a lot more people. So
Can I just get you to repeat that last part?
pardon?
Just repeat that last part. I just want to hear, because I didn't hear the word strata in there. So tell me about how.
Well, strata, the reason we're doing strata is because some of them, people want to own their own lot. So we'll be able to sell some of them for a lot, but we plan on keeping at least half of them has a rentals. And all the ones that they're backing onto the pipeline will be rentals. And we're giving the district 20 feet of the pipeline right away for a future, for walking trail, which people have been using it for as long as I know that pipeline's been there. People use that for a public trail anyway, so that will be given to the district as a right of way for a trail. So that will remain.
Just one quick question. You mentioned half rental. That's rental for the pads, or is that rental
Yes.
homes?
No, we won't be renting homes. People will own their own home.
Alex, I'm going to let you put your hand up when we ask too many questions that we shouldn't be. Okay? Thank you.
So yeah, so the I'm sure you have the report that Alex wrote. That we've been in discussion many times over the years, and so it kind of addresses the market or the needs that are right now. We can't go ahead, of course, until Clearwater has been able to upgrade the water system along there. So I know that engineering is being done, and most of that development can't go ahead until on that whole road, on Park Drive as well, until that water system's upgraded. So, and we will be working with a developer who is here, Frank Ambler's here of Countryside Modular Home Sales, and so they're manufactured home sales. So he's second generation. They've been doing it forever, and they've done some really nice parks. The other thing with the park is you have rules, so it's not going to be like a subdivision where people can park a car and put it up on blocks and leave it in their front yard. The rules will be enforced by the strata. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming to the hearing. I'm going to call for a second time if there's anyone who wishes to make a presentation to council. Great.
Thank you for having us on the table. My name is Frank Ambler. I'm with Countryside Homes. My family started building a manufactured home park in '72, so that's 51 years in this business. So my job is to supply homes for people. So their needs typically are, they want to own the asset. So our homes are made in Winfield, so they're built to BC building code. we find a big need of people that maybe have sold their past homes. They have maybe 250,000, they can own the home. A rented pad fits their needs. It's quite affordable for a lot of people. Gary thinks this is a good place, and I strongly agree that it fits your guys' needs. What do you guys think?
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else to add?
Okay,
Okay.
thank you guys.
And third and final time, would anybody else like to come and make a presentation to council? Oh, hi.
Is this just on the mobile home?
This is for both. Yeah. So this is also, so we had referenced it, so 428 Sunshine Valley Road, which I think, yeah.
I don't know if there's any questions. My name is Jim McCrate, and I'm one of the owners of the property in Sunshine Valley Road. It's an application to rezone the property from RL1 back to CR1. We originally did this back in 2009, and then it was changed back to RL1 in 2016. So before we can subdivide or proceed with any sort of subdivision, we have to rezone it back to CR1. And that's what this application is. Going forward, there are issues with water servicing that have to be addressed. The district has asked for us to file a covenant on the title so that if you approve the rezoning to CR1, it gives notice to any future owner that there are issues with water, and they may, if there's any future owner, they may not be able to have as many lots as they wish, because your zoning at CR1 can go down to a 1 acre parcel. That's not our plan, but that is what's possible under the zoning. So there will be a covenant on the title until the water issue is resolved, which I understand, I hope is going to happen very soon. I just thought I'd stand up and introduce myself. I don't know if there's any questions. We've owned the property in one fashion or another since 1987. It's been a long time. It's a beautiful area in Sunshine Valley. Our plan is to put country residential semi-large lots, anywhere from 3 to 4 acres. And we don't plan to go down to 1 acre parcels at all. And it fits Sunshine Valley. And that's what we're hoping to do. So this is first step. So,
Right.
but thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for all that you've done for Clearwater over the many years that you've been involved in the community as well.
Well, thank you.
As long as you were here. Great. I'm going to do a third and final. I know that was a third and final, but just in case. I don't see anybody else wanting to. Seeing that there are no further speakers, I declare this public hearing now closed. Thank you. Yeah, I do.
I'll move that all written and verbal submissions regarding zoning amendment bylaw number 270, 2023, or zoning amendment bylaw number 280, 2023, be received and that the public hearing be closed.
Seconder? Councillor Herring, any discussion? No discussion. All in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to the mayor's report. As I noted, the Mayor Blackwell gives his regrets. However, he was quite busy at the Southern Ontario Local Government Association last week. It is really to our community's advantage having the mayor also sit on the UBCM board. So lots of very, very good conversations, and certainly dazzled the crowd by winning the trivia competition. Which is really great. I'll save my report for after, but I will move to Councillor Matheson.
Thank you. I think I've been at two conferences the last month, and I think the housing conference has been pretty well covered. The Economic Development Conference in Vernon was enlightening. I was quite surprised that there were so few municipal government officials there. It was mostly economic development people. But it was a very interesting thing, a bit of an eye-opener about rural challenges as we move forward and trying to grow our communities. Very similar problems arising from the housing development or the housing conference. Suitable housing, infrastructure, it was all similar issues and problems. The one thing I found very interesting was a presentation on where we're going in the future for development and growth of rural communities. And I kind of went down to it, and the way it was billed was, this is where you're going to be in 20 years or 15 years or 5 years. And in fact, it was a really open, interesting discussion about kind of a free-flowing form about rural development and where it's going to be in 20 years. And they don't have any answers, but they say with the changing in technology, we have to imagine where our community is headed and how we can best get there, especially with the resource industry struggling the way it is now. And they're looking in Alberta at some of the communities, and they're saying, going back to farming and things like that, and yet artificial intelligence has made its enter on the stage. And they're finding farms now in Alberta that do not have a single working person on it. The entire farm is run with artificial intelligence. And they're saying that for resource communities, they're depending on mining. It will be the same situation within not many years down the road, where there will be no employees and everything will be automated, run by one person in a control room. And that's from trucking to the mining to pretty much everything. And it was a real shocker to a lot of us, and really made us stop and think about where we're going and how fast things are changing. So it was a very interesting conversation. I'll report more on it at the next meeting. It's a lot to absorb.
Great. Thank you very much. Councillor Frizzle.
Closer to home, as the council representative for the Tourism Walls Grey, I just wanted to let everybody know that the information center is now open. It opened on May 1st. And they are actually looking for volunteer visitor ambassadors that can come and help the people that they're hiring by just talking to the tourists that come in and let them know the places that they can go, that, especially if it's senior volunteers, they can say this particular trail would be really good for you, or waterfalls or whatever it is, and just give a really good local perspective. And so they're really are excited to have volunteers come there and to be an ambassador for Clearwater, because I think if you live here, you know what it's like up there, and you're very good for them. So I thought I'd just throw that out there. Also this weekend, the special event transit bus is starting up. It'll be going every Saturday. It's a free bus, and it's allows people to hop on the bus and be able to go to the Elks Pancake Breakfast, go to the farmers market. If there's another event happening that day, they'll be able to go to that. They can use it to go to the grocery store, to go to coffee, go to the library, whatever they want to do. But it's starting this weekend, and the schedules will be out. And I think people need to take advantage of the opportunity to just be able to see what is happening in your community on Saturdays. That's my report.
Great, thank you. Councillor Herring.
So I spent half of this last 2 weeks on a leave of absence, so I had a shorter period. But a lot of what came up for me in the last 2 weeks has been around, one, building and housing concerns. Just talking with a few concerned citizens about the length of approvals to get building permits, the requirements to get infrastructure built. In addition, just through the rumor mill, we're hearing about a massive spike in the cost of concrete because of a shutdown in Kamloops that's affecting the ability to get concrete out here. I've talked to a few people who have had projects delayed because the cost of concrete tripled, and so it's no longer really viable to bring in a truck for projects. Stuff like that is going to have a massive impact when we're trying to grow our housing market. So just something to be aware of going on in town. The other thing is I've had a number of conversations with people around racism, discrimination, and bias in Clearwater. And it's time to start admitting that we have a problem locally. This stuff is circulating. We've received a letter from the public which displayed some of this stuff. We're going to be talking about that later. We've heard from numerous members of our community, whether they're physicians or people who work at the grocery store, that have experienced this kind of discrimination, including our own staff. It's time for Clearwater to confront some of this stuff. And that's all I've got for an update.
Great, thank you very much. So just sort of highlighting the fact that spring has sprung, that's for sure. Just in the past week, we saw the last coffee house from Valley Pride that was well attended. We also saw the Ski Hill fundraiser. CSS put on their first play for the first time in 2 years. And it was really marvelous because the kids, I think it was Friday afternoon, and they were saying, you mean we have to know all our lines? And it's like, yeah, you have an audience tomorrow at 2. And they rose to the occasion, and it was just joyful opportunity for all. Also, you've probably seen all the green uniforms out on the fields at Clearwater Secondary School. Clearwater Youth Soccer is in full swing. I think they've got over 300 registrations, which is absolutely amazing. And the Footy Fest is going to be happening the first weekend in June, so they're quite keen on that one. Playing right this afternoon is the CSS girls soccer team, so they're doing some excellent battle. I also want to acknowledge we had a student from Clearwater Secondary School, Matthew Levine. He went to nationals in just this past month for this trade skill development and won gold. So just a real tribute to the Clearwater Secondary School and their trades program and how they are developing that skill. Coming up for this week, I believe it's the first farmers market this coming Saturday. We've also got the Elks Pancake Breakfast that started last week. Yeah, and continuing on May 6th coming up, we're doing the council community pitch-in, which is great, and an opportunity to take a look around at our communities and neighborhood and all join in and just do a bit of a tidy up after the winter. And also on May the 7th, the Hospital Auxiliary is doing their spring tea fundraiser. And I know that they're meeting today. They were talking about the wish list for the hospital. So that's exciting there. And then I also had the opportunity to join the mayor at the Southern Interior Local Government AGM. Some of the interesting things that they talked about was the path to recovery and housing. They talked about, some of the Canada Community Building Fund and renewal. There was a really interesting presentation on how to fund infrastructure. So the mayor has been in contact with those presenters and will be coming to council. So that's great. Planning and response to climate-related events. Interior Health gave a very informative presentation. And then we also had a really good session, which was planning for the future, using 2021 census data on the Statistics Canada website. Really fascinating how immigration is going to continue to tie into community development and certainly the housing topics that are coming forward. So again, really robust, and the landscape for local government is changing. And I will reiterate it again, that OCP is going to be such an important document and how it guides us to keep up and follow some of the government's lead on that. Anyway, that is everything. 15.1, if you've got an agenda, it's page 52 to 53. This is the liaison assignments and upcoming committee meetings. So just on that, Councillor Herring, you've got something to share on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to see about being added to the Emergency Management Working Group as the council representative there. It's listed as TBD currently.
Yes, absolutely. It hasn't been rolled out yet. It has been passed as the bylaw did pass for it, so it's just been inactive. But if you want to be added to that, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you'd make a great addition to that. Some of the upcoming meetings. So we've got a Trails Task Force meeting for tonight. Okay, that's great. And we've also got the Chamber of Commerce meeting that's coming up on May the 9th. Do we have an upcoming Tourism Wells Gray meeting? Maybe you could provide that to Mr. Prime. Okay. Okay. All right, that sounds great, but maybe even as a sub-note could be handed under that, which would be really great. Again, Chamber of Commerce is coming up for May the 9th. Recruitment and Retention Working Group, we had spoken about that last time. I don't know if there's been any movement on a meeting time as of yet.
No movement at this time, no.
Okay, that's great. And the Forestry Initiatives Working Group, we've got a tentative date of June the 13th. How's planning for that coming?
Good. I need to follow up with quite a few who was there before, because some people have moved on, changed positions, so there's a lot of tracking down who the new roles should fill in there.
Okay, that sounds great. And then we've got the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Working Group. I know that they weren't able to have a meeting in April, but I think that some of the requests from the committee members is that we set up a 3-month meeting schedule on that, so it can be set into people's calendars.
Yeah, absolutely, and they do have one scheduled for May 8th, actually.
Okay, perhaps maybe that could get sent out. Thank you. And then just a reminder of the council strategic is going to be May the 24th, is that right? Do you have that one there? Or no, just looking for it. When's the strategic?
I don't have that in front of me, no, sorry.
Okay, but we've got a date for the strategic plan is
Yes, we do.
May the 25th. Okay, that's great. Okay, so I think we've got that one. And so now we're going to move into, we've accepted that. 16.2, Resolution Amendment, Valley Pride Society Grant in Aid. There is a staff report. Do I have any staff members that would like to speak to this and just explain why it's coming back to council?
Yes, so absolutely. I'll speak to this. And a lot of this is based around just the discussion initially, as the Valley Pride Society was talking to council, making their pitch for their grant and aid. It was, looking back at it, a lot of it was worded as that they wanted to hold a Valley Pride parade. And that was what the funds were given in the resolution, that it was $2,500 for the Valley Pride Society to hold a Valley Pride parade. And then through that, they were then approached by Rotary to to help host the May Day parade this year, as Rotary was passing on that torch. And they sort of had made an assumption that they could just use those funds for that instead of doing their own Pride parade. That's not actually how we can't issue those funds if they don't use it specifically for what the resolution was worded for. Therefore, we were asked to bring it back and change the wording, rescind the last resolution, and essentially use the funds for their commitment for the May Day parade instead.
That's right. And from what I understand is that their May Day parade is celebrating our heritage.
Yes.
They have asked for a route change, which sounds actually quite exciting because it will have the community ending here, whereas before it used to be the end of the parade and then participants of the parade could go to Raft River Elementary for a barbecue.
Yeah.
This way it becomes more of a community event. I believe that they've got a variety of activities that they're putting together. They're using the field. They've got some live music that's coming in, and that the funds that we're doing is just helping to revive this cherished activity. The only thing to note is I think it was Valley Pride who was keen on taking it up because Rotary had said after 25 years
Yes.
we're happy to let somebody else take that on. So I think in the spirit of the community and the fact that it is exciting to be able to celebrate our heritage, this is a great amendment and really fits into how we want to move forward on that. So there is a motion if anybody wanted to move forward on that. Okay, do I have a seconder on that? Seconded by Councillor Frizzle. Any final discussion on that? Councillor Herring, any? No. Councillor Matheson? Nope. Okay. All right, getting ready. All right, then that's an easy one. All in favor? Great, thank you very much. And our thanks to Valley Pride. I think that they've been doing a really great job getting out there, and their coffee houses have certainly were a loved, dark winter event series. Okay, we're moving into some super exciting stuff. Bylaws. Bylaw 282, 2023, the 2023 annual tax rate bylaw. Director Klassen, I think that this is all you.
And this is supplemental and not included in the agenda package, so if anyone does require one, please let me know.
Okay, and I think you've got a presentation for the screen, is that correct? And Council, you've got your copy on the table. Great.
Thank you, Council and Acting Mayor Sim. Today, I will bringing forward the tax rate bylaw for 2023. I have a few presentation slides to provide some background, and I will talk slowly.
Yes.
Today, we will be looking at the annual tax rates bylaw 282 2023 to be introduced the first and second time, and also to be read a third time. Just go to slide 3. Right? All right. So here is an overview of the municipal property taxes. For a single residential property, the average assessment, now this is averages, is about $450,000 in 2023. The municipal tax would be approximately $1,323 for a change from 2022 of $31. And business other class, the average assessment is $413,000 with a tax municipal tax portion of $4,068 with a decrease of $428. We are going to be raising property tax revenue as per the financial bylaw of about $3 million. Overall tax revenue requirement over 2022 was 7%. This increase is offset to the single-family residential and the business other due to the new roles coming online from the TMX. So that TMX is what we would call new roles, and it would provide a they call it non-market change to our BC assessment. So we have more units, and so the tax burden is spread over more units, more roles, more properties. So, and it also shifts because that is the utility class in our BC assessment.
So just on that for coffee talk language. So if you were sitting down, that's a good news story because it means that more people are sharing into the community coffers.
Yeah, exactly.
And the utility fund is a little bit it's at a different rate. So for the TMX properties that follow under those roles, would be paying of a different class. So again, the sharing is caring model is helpful.
So the single family residential won't see the 7% increase for municipal portion. They'll see maybe 2% increase, and that's why it's only $34 or $31.
Right, and I think that that's a really important point because people will maybe fixate on the 7% like I did, but getting into it, I think it's important to note that these extra properties and the fact that they're under utility class, the average is $31. We will see properties that will have a higher taxation, but overall the average when council was looking at the rates, this is how we landed.
And for business other class, they'll actually decrease about $428 per year because, again, the utility portion is going to take up more. So there's a shift. And I can demonstrate the shift if we look at the next slide here. Here we can see the percentages of where our taxation revenue will be coming from in each one of those classes. The single-family residential class is class 1, utilities is class 2, and business other is class 6. So in 2022, residential paid 53.9%. In 2023, they'll pay 51.5% of all the $3 million that we have to raise. Utilities paid in 2022 paid 20.75. In 23, they'll pay 26.52. And as corresponding, you'll see there in business other, in 22, they paid 25%. And they'll go down to 21.67. So there is a good news story there. The 7% increase that we need to, over 2022, that we need to raise for revenue to pay for our expenses has been shifting in each of those classes.
And
So
for
that-
the historical record, if I remember for the business, is that in 2020, the council had recognized that with the wildfires and the mill shutdown, is that there was significant impact to business. So we did not raise the business tax. So it continues to be a good news story for our business community and the support that's being demonstrated. Okay, thank you.
On the next slide. So this is the property tax monthly breakdown of the single-family residential property. So if you were a single-family residential property, instead of looking at it annually as being $1,323, we're looking at it on a monthly basis. So on a monthly basis, it is $110 a month. And out of those 110, 47 of it, that's your, the bar graph to the furthest to the right, is $47 for transportation, that's your roads. General government is $17. And recreation and parks is $16. And fire emergency program is $12. Fiscal services, financial services is $7, and then a whole bunch of small little items. So transit is $3, recreation, culture, and events is $3, and as we look through this, $110 a month, we get some pretty good services. It's for $110 per month. So it's an interesting way of looking at it.
And I think the other thing is just in reflection of that $47 per month is the fact that council has designated $100,000 this year into roads.
Yes. No, 300,000.
300,000. 300,000.
300,000 into roads and another 100,000 of that.
That's what I'm saying.
Going into reserve. So that's also reflected in there.
Yeah. So it's a good investment for the future.
For sure. Now, when we pay our property taxes, it's not just the municipal portion, it's about 50% is the municipal portion, but we also have to pay, or we are requisitioning for school tax, the regional district, the hospital, the police, BC assessment, and municipal finance authority. And in this slide, we're comparing the 2022 in the green to the 2023 requisitions, and the percentage change. So although the district had a 7% change, the other requisitions have changes that are significant, and from 20% or so. But it doesn't end up being that much in total, but it's still 300,000, an additional 300,000. So our residents will have to pay an additional $300,000 in other requisitions, not related to the municipal taxation. And just to reflect that, to your left here, that is your average single-family residential, and to your right is the average business other. So that average home that we looked at a few slides back, you have the municipal portion, which is $1,300, but they'll end up paying the $2,554 in total. To reflect, the school portion is $442. The regional district is $333 or $330 exact. And as well for the businesses, the $4,000, but they'll actually be paying $7,471, and it'll include school taxes, policing, hospital, MFA, and BC assessment.
Council, any questions at this point in time? I just have one, which is the average single-family home. Even though we've kind of done our part to try and keep things at a modest growth, do you know offhand what the average was last year with all of the taxes? So that's single-family residential. This year is paying $2,554 as an example. What did they pay last year? Do you know offhand?
What I do know is last year they paid, just the municipal portion is $1,292.
Yeah.
And I do have that. Just let me.
I think it's just important to know that, as you look at your tax thing, I always look at the bottom, right? Right now, this year, it's important to look at those other parts in that breakdown, just to show we are the tax collector for these other agencies. and it's not the municipality that's collecting that money. And no worries if you can't, but what I'm hearing is that these other portions have gone up a significance. Would you have a percentage at all by chance? Oh, okay.
So in 2022, the average tax single-family residential paid $2,341, and they will be paying $2,554. And the business paid $7,801 last year, and they'll be going down $7,471.
That's a good comparison. Thank you very much. Okay.
And the next slide is just to provide, budgeting never stops, planning never stops, and one item here that I don't want to forget is that reporting is important and legislative reporting is important. And we are going to be implementing a new budget system to help us keep our eye on our targets and our initiatives and to ensure that we have success. And you have a resolution in front of you.
Do we have the resolution?
What does council wish?
Okay.
I'll make the recommendation that Bylaw 282, 2023, annual tax rate bylaw be introduced and read second time, or is it
First and second.
First and second time.
All in favor? Great. And do we have that?
Yes, you're given it separately, but if you don't have it, I can give you another copy. The bylaw not here.
This is where I need my team. This isn't my good part.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
We have to do a separate reading for the third time.
Is it in the agenda?
No, it's the supplemental, but I didn't need to hand it to you. Yeah, it was this one. Okay.
That's okay. This is where I need my help, so thank you. All right. So, District of Clearwater 2023 annual tax rates, bylaw number 282, 2023, a bylaw to establish 2023 annual tax rates. Whereas, pursuant to Section 165 of the Community Charter, Council has prepared a 5-year financial plan for the period of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2027. And whereas the 5-year financial plan as presented has been considered approved by Council, and whereas it is necessary under Section 197 of the Community Charter to establish tax rates to raise the revenue for municipal purposes to identified in year 2023 of the 5-year financial plan, and whereas to meet its taxing obligation in relation to other local governments or public bodies, certain amounts are to be collected for the year 2023 by means of rates established by the District of Clearwater. Now, therefore, the Council of the District of Clearwater, an open meeting assembled and acts as follows. I have to go through all of this? Citation? This bylaw may be cited as District of Clearwater 2023 annual tax rates, bylaw number 282, 2023. Council, this was months of hard work.
Acting Mayor, all those in favor? Yeah.
Oh, I know, but I had a little preamble to say great work, team. But maybe we'll do that. All of those in favor? Great work, team. And again, for the benefit of the audience, Ms. Director Klassen has been with us and did just a masterful job of leading us, and certainly having Councillor Matheson and Councillor Bratton join us as part of the team. It's been just an incredible way to go forward and track the progress. So there we have it. Okay, now what?
There's now a recommendation to be read a third time.
District of Clearwater 2023 annual tax rate bylaw number 282, 2023 be read a third time.
Second that.
If anybody would like to get up and leave, this is a good time. District of Clearwater 2023 annual tax rates, bylaw number 282, 2023, a bylaw to establish a bylaw to establish 2023 annual tax rates. Whereas, pursuant to the Section 165 of the Community Charter, Council has prepared a 5-year financial plan for the period of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2027. And whereas the 5-year financial plan as presented has been considered and approved by council. And whereas it is necessary under section 197 of the Community Charter to establish tax rates to raise the revenue for municipal purposes identified in year 2023 of the 5-year financial plan. And whereas to meet its taxing obligation in relation to other local governments or public bodies, certain amounts are to be collected for the year 2023 by means of rates established by the District of Clearwater. Now therefore, the Council of the District of Clearwater in open meeting assembled and acts as follows. Citation. This bylaw may be cited as District of Clearwater 2023 Annual Tax Rates Bylaw number 282, 2023. All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, that was big. Bylaw 283, Building Step Code Bylaw Amendment. I believe that we have the TNRD. Who do we have online with for us, Mr. Prime?
Yes, we do. We have Regina Sedlikova from TNRD Building Services to discuss.
Hi, welcome. Yeah, thank you very much. We can see and hear you. Great, thank you very much. I believe we do have some questions. Councillor Herring?
Yeah, just to start off with the step code being prescriptive versus performance based, has there been any sense of how much the prescriptive model is going to cost versus the performance model? Because I know we don't have the inspectors to do the performance model necessarily in rural communities, so we're far more likely to have to follow the prescriptive model. Great, thank you. So to,
Supplemental?
yeah, just to sum up there, so you're saying that for the prescriptive model, you're looking at about 16 to 20,000 additional, and for the performance model, 14 to $25,000 difference, depending on the home. Mm-hmm. Got it. Okay, and I did have some other questions, if I'm okay.
I'll just check. Councillor Matheson or Councillor Frizzle? Okay, Councillor Herring, you have another couple of questions.
Yeah, just the additions about building permit renewals and people sitting on renewals long term. I just have some concerns there, considering the spikes in materials we've seen in building. Like, people could be sitting on these permits because the price of their materials has doubled, tripled in the course of a year, and they might be trying to wait out market change. I understand the need to close these files, but I'm concerned that, like, are we forcing people into changing the economic formula for their build, for one? And then the other side of it is this surcharge fee increasing. Both of them are aimed at predominantly owner builders, as I see it, because it looks like from the data that contractors aren't really the problem in these terms. It's people who are building their own home. In BC, building your own home is still the cheapest way to build a home. You have the least hands in the pot. There is no developer that you're paying out. There's no contractor you're paying out. You're building yourself. So increasing these fees is directly charging the people who are building their home at the cheapest possible way during a housing crisis. To me, this seems like it's good for the administration, not necessarily good for the building of new homes in BC.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Herring?
Yeah, thank you. And I guess my last thing I wanted to ask about was the part about stopping the ability to issue permits on non-compliant buildings. I'm just curious about that. It mentions that it wouldn't apply to historic builds. Is that meant that people who built, say, before the current building code, right, are they going to be exempt? What I'm looking for, I guess, is if somebody has an older home and they apply for a permit to do a renovation, are they going to be asked to update their older home to code before they're able to get a permit? Great, thank you very much.
Councillor Herring is so interested and causes council to think about things differently, and so I appreciate your answers. And I really like the answer to the last question, because we did have some concerns over it, is that how far would it go and what would that mean? And Clearwater being an older community, it might send some ripples. So you've identified a great number of things for there. Council, do you have any other questions? So this has been put forward for first, second, and third. I do know that we are missing 3 members. I don't know if council would like to go through the 3 meetings here, or do 2 readings and then do the third at the next council meeting when we've got the full team back. What is your... Go ahead, Councillor Herring.
I'd like to recommend an amendment that we move to the 3 renewals, as mentioned earlier, rather than the 2 renewals on the building permit. I'd like to see that come about, and I'd suggest that as well, the surcharge fee remain at $500. So I'd like to propose those amendments before we go to first, second, third reading.
Councillor Frizzle?
Just one question. That $500 you wanted to raise, have you had issues here in Clearwater? I know you have a large area, so I'm not sure if there's issues here or just your area in general. Thank you.
Councillor Frizzle, is getting that information important to you before we move forward? So are you comfortable with the amendments, or where do you stand? Proposed amendment. Okay.
So I'm good.
All right. Mr. Prime, so we have 2 suggested amendments. Do we need to bring that back, or can we do a friendly amendment now? What would be the next course of action?
As Regina said, these can be amended right into the readings as we do them now. So if that's the will of council, so.
Do the reading now.
Okay. And to my question, council, first, second, and third, or first and second?
I'd like to do first and second to give the mayor and the other councillors a chance to look at this as well.
Okay, and I'm going to need some help on how we capture those 2 amendments, please.
And just as a question, usually we would just do a first reading and then the second and third. So we could just do the first reading.
First reading. Okay. So, Mr. Prime, how do you suggest, and Regina, you've got so many years of experience, please feel free to weigh in on how I'm about to handle these amendments.
Yes, please, Regina. If you know which articles in that amendment bylaw that they would be.
Yeah, I certainly appreciate that. And I think it's really important that we do customize this to our community. It's funny because even as you were saying, a 5-year open permit for so many homes and having to live next door to that, and I immediately thought to myself, people have next door neighbors. So it's an interesting lens depending on where you live or what your situation is. So I appreciated that. Okay, so we landed on doing a first reading. I wish you were in this chair.
And
Yeah, Mr. Prime?
my apologies, but under 2.3 under the bylaw, it does already call for up to 3 times. So I don't think we actually have to amend that.
So we don't have. Listen, so far you've been so amazingly impressive that this was, you're still looking like a rock star to us. So, Mr. Prime, I missed what you were saying there.
So we only have one amendment to make, and that's the fee surcharge at this time.
Okay,
And
that's
that'll be
great.
after
So we're
this-
still
the
going to do
second
our
reading.
whereas.
Who moved the first reading, sorry?
Right. No, I got that. I'm moving ahead. Not all of this. Oh, good. Okay. Just to hear. Yeah. All right. I need a motion, please. He's not the one. Do I have a motion? Okay. Moved. Okay. Seconded by Councillor Matheson. Any discussion before? Or no, we're just going to read them. All right. A bylaw to amend District of Clearwater Building Regulations, bylaw number 129, 2014, whereas the Council of the District of Clearwater has adopted Building Regulations bylaw number 129, 2014, and whereas the Council deems it desirable to amend bylaw number 129, 2014, now therefore the Council of the District of Clearwater in an open meeting assembled and acts as follows. Citation: this bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater Building Regulations Amendment bylaw number 283, 2023, first reading. Now I need to make an amendment. So we have to have the discussion, please. So Councillor Herring, you would like to
sorry.
make an amendment?
Yeah, I would like to suggest the amendment that the surcharge fee remain at $500 instead of moving to $1,500.
Okay, and that is under what item?
Acting Mayor?
Yep, thank you.
So item 3.1 has this broken down under 2 fee structures. $500 where the construction value is less than $50,000, or $1,500 where the construction value exceeds $50,000. That is how this bylaw is currently worded.
Councillor
Am I
Herring,
correct?
how is it that you're wanting to see this?
Yeah, I'd like to see it read as a 500 where it is less than 50,000 and 500 where it exceeds 50,000.
Okay, so you've recorded that amendment,
Yes, I have.
and we can go through second reading now.
Yep. I believe we need a
Yep.
vote on the amendment. as
Right,
it is.
so what I need is an amendment to the motion.
Yeah.
Councillor Herring?
Yes, I'd like to amend the motion.
To item, yeah, because you're doing an amendment to the motion. We approve the motion, approve the amendment, and then we go back and we vote on the motion as
amended.
As amended.
Yes.
Does that fit?
Do we have someone to second the amendment then?
Do I have a seconder? So just to be clear, we are amending 3.1, item B, to change from $1,500 to $500 where the construction value exceeds $50,000. I'm looking for a seconder to adopt this amendment. I have a seconder. Is there any discussion on the proposed amendment? All those in favor? All right. So I have that motion carries. So we have an adopted motion. Mr. Prime, you have that noted? All right. So
Yes, I
I
do.
believe that this has to be read again for a second time with the amendment.
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay. Does that sit with you?
Could-
Councillor Frizzle is not comfortable with the process.
Okay,
So we can,
we've made the amendment. We do need someone to have a motion to make a second reading.
Thank you.
that's what you were wanting.
That's it.
Okay. Motion to do a second reading.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Herring. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Read it, please. Sorry.
Read it. I just always want to jump to the end. District of Clearwater, bylaw number 283, 2023, a bylaw to amend the District of Clearwater Building Regulations, bylaw number 129, 2014. Whereas the Council of the District of Clearwater has adopting building regulations bylaw number 129, 2014, and whereas the Council deems it desirable to amend bylaw number 129, 2014. Now therefore, the Council of the District of Clearwater, in an open meeting, assembled and acts as follows. Citation, this bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater Building Regulations Amendment Bylaw number 283, 2023, noting the amendment, 131B. No discussion? Just checking? All those in favor? Great. Second reading carried. Thank you. And is that it for you, Regina? Are you... All right. Thank you very much for joining us. Pardon? I know, passing the torch. Yeah. All right, thank you very much. This has certainly been one of the positives of COVID, having the virtual attendance. Okay, Council, we've now been doing this for pretty much 2.5 hours. Is everybody all right? Can we proceed through the next one? We have Mr. Krause on the line. Okay. Welcome, Alex. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Appreciate it, and appreciated your help through the public hearing. That was great. Okay. All right, so we are now moving on to item number 17.3. We are on page 94 of the agenda, zoning amendment bylaw number 270, 2023. This is being given a third reading. Mr. Krause, is there anything that you would like to share at this point in time? You know what? I actually walked the property this morning, so I think having that visual, because I do have some questions that arose as a result of that. So I think going through it would be really helpful. Council, any questions? Councillor Frizzle? Councillor Herring? So maybe you can help me with a couple of things, and perhaps this isn't the right time in terms of the fact that it's just a zoning reapplication. So and although you've cited that the proposed layout may not be exact, what struck me about that is that there is only the 2 roads going into that subdivision. Is that right? Okay, and so the reason I raise that is because with the density that's in there, that becomes quite a congested neighborhood, so to speak. I look at what we have with Robson and that community network, and with 70 units, that's 70 vehicles going around and around, with very limited sort of trail access. So even if you wanted it as a family development, I'm trying to figure out the safety, because I would not want to see a repeat of what we've got in Robson without any sidewalks or anything, or once they were in, there would be sidewalks. Yeah. My second question is when I went to the OCP, is that it looked to me that there had been some intent about extending Warby Road, so that Warby Road would go along that subject property boundary currently in red there, and with that, that's where that other park would go along. So it would actually go along the road. So you're telling me that the rezoning, you've called it wasn't industrial. What did you call it? Institutional. What does institutional define as? Right. Okay, so even if it's designed as that, it still is going to need some sort of a road. So which property would have to be responsible for that road? So the northern property would be responsible for it. Okay, unless the minister. Yep, go ahead. Okay, so there still is the potential for the Ministry of Transportation to come back and say, well, actually, we need a bit more access to it because it's only got the 2. Okay. Right. And so then to follow up on that, so although that this zoning isn't going to change the one that's to the south of the development, so he still wants to hold on to that. So that's little part off Park Drive there. Right. And so, but I didn't see an access road to get from that. So would that also go off Norfolk Road to get into there? So I think you have to go back but from where? That's what I couldn't understand today. Like there's a small sort of easement, but it's super tiny. And would that have any impediment with the pipeline that's there now? Like that? Yeah. Okay, that's good information there. Council, has this discussion, Councillor Frizzle?
So with this new manufactured home, he did say it's not a trailer park, but it sounds like the road, it's narrower, so that sounds like a trailer park road to me. Okay.
And that's actually, sorry, go ahead, Councillor
So
Frizzle.
are these roads two-way or is it one-way? You could come in one way. Go ahead. Okay. Okay, thank you.
So my concern on that, and I think it's great that you've brought up that other subdivision, is that's quite narrow. And for the subdivision across from the Hoppenhog, that made sense because I think it's what, 20 units in there? So 20, whereas this one is looking upwards of 70. And that is a much higher traffic. And without a trails access, I am concerned about the safety of that kind of density. Yeah, and I do appreciate that, especially with the other property that's got the opportunity for 27. I just look at quality of life, and I think one of the strengths of this community is how they are working on connectivity and certainly safety for kids. And so we're looking at single families, coming into this area, having kids, having a safe place to go. I'm not seeing that in this with this kind of density. I'm not seeing that I would want kids out there on their bikes. Councillor Frizzle.
One question on that density. What is the reality of getting 70 units in there with our current water system or even our future one?
I think that because there's another subdivision that's also being planned next to it, because of some of the constraints on our infrastructure, is there room for the two to be had kind of in concert, recognizing some constraints, connectivity, and how do we actually plan a cohesive community? So at this point in time, I would like to, I'd like to see some more information coming forward on this before I pass. I would move for third reading.
I actually, we could, the zoning is the issue here right now. It could stop after the zoning. Like with what Mr. Krause says, if we don't have the services, we won't have the infrastructure or the density because we don't have the service. It's the zoning that we're doing right now, correct? Yeah, it is. I know. For me, I'd like to see those conversations be had. I would like some more information. Again, it's the cohesive community development. It's looking at, how can we foster those dialogues? Because there seems to be movement on the property next to them when I walked it today. So there's got to be some keenness and some energy for it. So it seems to me now would be a good time to have those developer conversations. Yes, I'd like to get that information and have it brought back to council. Councillor Matheson? Okay. Mr. Prime, I think that we need a motion to that effect, to receive more information from Mr. Krause and his department.
Yeah, I believe we just need a motion to table it at this time.
Well, actually, what we want is a bit more information. It's not to, no, we want to actually receive some information. So we need some direction for staff to come back with more information. It sounds like Mr. Krause can have a conversation with the developer. We can have that discussion around density. We can have that discussion around servicing. Is that what you're understanding, Mr. Krause? Did I translate okay? Do I have a member of council who can speak to that motion, put that together? Do you want to do that? Okay. Mr. Prime, we're going to need some help wordsmithing this. How are you doing?
So I am just in the process.
And just while Mr. Prime does that, I want to thank you very much, Alex, for just your knowledge on Clearwater and the community and some of the issues that we're facing in terms of servicing. It really helps having somebody so knowledgeable move through that, and especially being so having such a good hand also on the OCP and the community vision. I think that we would be really lost without your services, so thank you. So we're just waiting for our wordsmither.
Yes,
Okay.
so if I could recommend that council direct staff to bring back discussion on bylaw number 133, amendment bylaw number 270 to amend zoning bylaw number 133 on density and community cohesiveness to a future meeting of council.
Great. So moved. Seconder? Councillor Matheson, do I have discussion on that motion? All right, all those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kraus. No, we are going to call a 5-minute recess. Oh, we've got one bylaw. Sorry, Alex. I just am desperate to get out of this chair for 5 minutes. No, we'll hold on because it's just one more. So it's just the other zoning amendment bylaw. So we'll push through and then we'll move into committee of the whole. So yes, it sounds right. All right, audience, for anybody who wants to follow along, we are on page 109. And this is the zoning amendment bylaw 280, 2023. Over to you, Mr. Kraus. Questions? Councillor Frizzle?
The reality is this property's not going to have water easily, is it? Yeah.
Supplemental?
So will that be the responsibility of the owner or the responsibility of the municipality? Of those things? Okay.
I think that what I heard today from the owner is that he's acknowledged that in moving forward. I want to go back to the trails because, again, a connected community is a strong community moving forward. I think in the November meeting that we had, council did say that it could be cash in lieu of or may accept cash. Is that correct? Yeah. And I think that the difference between the first and the second for me is certainly being out in the world and just watching where the trends are going in the future and how, we really work harder for connected cities and how that is actually appealing for people who are looking for communities. And certainly with government direction and government vision, that is something, but we haven't heard that before. So it's been an invigorated conversation that I've heard. And I think because we do have that Trails Master Plan, it is worthy of consideration. And Sunshine Valley has not got the benefit of the same trails network and input. So, council, what would you like to do? Councillor Herring?
I'm fine with moving the third reading of this bylaw.
Okay. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
There's very few of you. Very few of you, team. Okay, so do we need to say all in favor for that, to read it for the third reading? Because that's what we're doing, third reading. Recommendations. Okay. All right, and the bylaw is found on page 109. Is that right?
Page 120.
Page 120? Thank you. Okay. District of Clearwater Bylaw number 280, 2023, a bylaw to amend District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133. Whereas an application number RZ 2102 for amendment to zoning bylaw number 133 has been made. And whereas the desirable changes in uses of land have been considered. And whereas the zoning amendment conforms to the District of Clearwater official community plan. Now therefore, Council of the District of Clearwater in an open meeting assembled and acts as follows. Citation, this bylaw may be cited as District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133, amendment bylaw 280, 2023. All those in favor? Motion carries. There we go. Thank you very much again for that. Thank you for your considerations, and I think that we will probably be having further discussions on the OCP and the trails and how that looks moving forward. Thanks for your experience on that in advance. All right. Motion for do I need to motion for a 5-minute break?
Yep, that's fine. You don't need a motion at this time.
Great. Audience, 5-minute break. If you want to come back, fantastic. We'd love to have you. If not, we appreciate you being here. So in that, and I just, while you do have, is there any questions from the students there? Did Alex graduate from TRU geography? Oh, excellent question. Alex, are you still with us? No, he's gone.
Hi. Hey, Brad.
Oh, he's back. Hey. Audience question. Did you graduate TRU in geography? Yes, he did. So we've got a geography class here as part of TRU. So they're very happy to see someone like yourself. Any questions for Alex just while he's here? Nope, no questions. All right. What's that?
Oh, you're a planner. Okay. I thought maybe you're a lawyer, but you're a planner.
Yes.
He just asking what your role was, and he is a planner for Thompson-Nicola Regional District. Great. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate you popping back on. Okay. Any other questions from the students? Okay. Well, you saw a lot in action today. No, again, having an audience really... Yeah, and it's nice that you've got an instructor who sees, democracy and community development in action. And I hope you also learned what it is to take new positions and roles and ask a team for help and support and just fumble your way through. So thanks, you guys. Okay, 5 minutes, everybody.
It's warm in here today.
We can open these doors. Yeah, and I would open back here too, Linda.
What's that?
We can open these doors here too.
Yeah.
Louise. He's masterful. He's so thoughtful and he really puts things in perspective and he sees and what's required. Yeah. I've been watching you communicate over the last little while. And just loving it.
That was just about everything you could pack into a council meeting.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Right, we're not even done.
Yep.
Oh.
Well, it's the real frustration enforcement, and the other thing is really before we reconvene, I actually just want to, I didn't do it in your council report, Councillor Matheson, but I want to do it now. And I just want to do a big shout out to the fact that you had a vision of helping a citizen in our community with the powerlifting and getting to the games in Berlin. And in a very short period of time, you have gone past 90% of your goal. Yeah. And why I think that that's pretty masterful is it actually can be a guiding statement sort of for the district, is how we see something, believe in it, and then we watch it come together. And to keep that open mindset about, you know, we can do this. We can do it. So I just wanted to do a shout out for it.
Yeah, I equated it in one of my postings there. It's like throwing a birthday party. You're 16 years old, and you fully expect nobody to show up. It's so stressful that first few days. I didn't sleep, and it was, when I saw that first donation come in, I was like, oh my God, I want it. You know, and then the second one came in, I was like, oh my God.
Well, it's marvelous.
And then it just got a life of its own. Yeah.
Well, you started it.
It has to be the right story, the right project.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. You had the right vision. Okay, everybody, we are welcoming back. And Mr. Prime, are we back online for anybody who's joining us? Yes. Is anybody joining us?
We don't have anyone else online right now.
Okay, well, we're recording. So welcome back, everybody. Thank you for that break. We are on item 18, Committee of the Whole. There is a recommendation that Council enter a Committee of the Whole meeting of the Parks, Recreation and Social Development Committee.
I do that.
Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Matheson. All those in favor? And I turn it over to you.
Okay, so the first item on our agenda for the committee is 18.2, the anti-racism policy. You have a draft in your agenda on page, I believe, 123.
Yeah.
And so this is the policy that came in from, was it Lidstone and Co? That's gone back to the committee and now come back to us. Is that correct?
That's correct, and it came back without any amendments or changes.
Perfect. That's what I really like to hear. This looks like the right piece of legislation for us, so I'm super excited to move it in, and I think couldn't be more timely based on, you know, my comments earlier and some of the stuff we're running into in the community. I'm really excited to have this go forward and to see what we can do with that group next.
I'll move the recommendation.
Great, and do we have a seconder? I'll second it. All right. Any discussion?
I'm just going to say that I concur with all your thoughts, and I think that it's really important that we start getting out into the community, you know, what it is to be anti-racist, and you know, to learn what it is to be anti-racist, and to look at our worldview lens. And what's interesting is that if you read Ibram Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist, he talks about all the world, you know, needing to see the lens. Right? And it is not just one section, it is all of us, and how we learn to reframe, and how we learn to just have different conversations in different contexts, and how we can keep learning all the time and reframing things and just be a more respectful and inclusive community. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think one of my favorite parts of this policy is just right up at the start. The District of Clearwater acknowledges and recognizes the existence in our community of racism in all its forms. Mm-hmm. That's such a critical thing for us, and I'm super excited that that's part of the policy, because it's just us saying we see that this is a problem, right? We know that people we care about are affected by this. So we have it passed. All those in favor, I guess. All right. And on to 18.3 regarding the scope of the DEI working group. We have a staff report in front of us. Would staff like to speak to that?
Yeah, this is a staff report from Kawiria, who is the staff liaison for the DEI working group. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here to speak on it further. I believe there just was sort of further discussion through the DEI and just sort of unclarity, and they just wanted a bit more ability to sort of work with staff and sort of move some things forward. I'd sort of like to note that when you're looking at the options, option one, when the word arrangement comes up a lot, I think it's more to make recommendations to staff, not necessarily that they're out there paying for these things and sort of directly doing it, but it's their request to staff, hey, we want to do this work program with staff, or we want to reach out this way. So that'll be what arrangement looks like as far as the working group is considered.
Okay. Any thoughts from council?
Having attended a few of those meetings, and that's why I really want to see the calendar so that we can get a very robust group of citizens. I mean, even at those meetings, it's been uncomfortable as we learn together. But I did want to share, so an example of a third party would be School District 73. So I brought the Indigenous Cultural Safety, Humility, and Competency Guide that they have. And then they've got an anti-racism resource staff booklet that they have. And what's interesting is all the various definitions. So I don't think the district has to do this alone. We can do it in partnership and share the learnings and continue to share it out. So for example, maybe working with the Chamber of Commerce and how to have some of those outreach sessions. So if you're going to put up, let's say, a rainbow sticker, you're signaling it's a safe space. Well, what does that mean? And does the staff within those business walls understand what a safe space would mean? So if we can start leading this conversation, it's really exciting. I sat with a fellow the other day. He was just passing through and he said, do you know, I just love how open this community seems, and he was giving some references. So we've started taking a few steps down the path, and I'm looking forward to doing more work. I would move recommendation number 1.
All right, and do we have a seconder? All right, Councillor Frizzle seconds that. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor? Great, and now we're on to 18.4 events planning discussion. May Day, Canada Day, and events barbecue purchase are listed under there. We don't have specific pages in the agenda for this. In terms of events planning around May Day, Councillor Bratton's not here today, so we don't have any specific details. Was there anything we needed to discuss in regards to that?
I believe the items that were up for discussion was whether or not council wanted to do a float, whether or not council wanted to direct staff to participate. There was just, I think that was the uncertainty that I was aware of.
Okay. Thoughts around the table?
Yeah, I recognize that, you know, long weekends are sometimes kind of tricky, but I think that because this is the first parade since Rotary has done it, I would love to see if council could put in something. We could maybe put our heads together. I would love it to have, you know, if some of the staff wanted to join us, but I don't want to make that a directive. That would just have to be of a volunteer type thing. You know, honoring our heritage. I mean, we could all, I don't know, there's lots of different things.
Now we need to show it.
I know, but our heritage came from the CID.
I've got a rocking kilt.
Okay. Well, actually, and you know what? We can discuss it, but I love the idea. The other thing that I wanted to bring up for maybe the district's contribution is May Day has not always been known for sunshine weather. And I don't know if there has been an ask for the new marquee tent, only because I'm dying to see it put up. And if that's something that we could direct staff, to, whether it means a work order or what, that can be done and working with Valley Pride.
I remember that Valley Pride did ask for in-kind donations, and we're waiting to hear back from them what donations they wanted in-kind, because they were just starting the planning.
Okay.
So in that in-kind request, perhaps they could provide what they would like.
Okay, and you know what a good refresher. That's the problem with that policy, is you have to do it so far in advance, and if it's just new, you're just catching up. So okay, so that sounds like that can be handled then. All right, so that's May Day.
Yeah, and as for Canada Day, what would, I know historically we've done barbecues at the beach in collaboration with Rotary, I believe, or was that actually all council for those events?
I thought it was all council.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so this year, Canada Day is coming up. We took a pause. Was it last year and the year before, or
Yeah.
just last year?
2 years.
2 years.
Maybe 3.
So I guess, yeah, it's about what do we want to do
Be 3 years.
this round. And I see the events barbecue purchase. Like, if we're going to flip burgers again, we might want something to flip it on.
So one of the feedbacks that I had last year, and I think we talked about it afterwards, is there was profound community disappointment that we didn't do anything at the beach.
Yeah.
And it felt like something had gone out of the community, and it was missed.
Yeah, it was.
And I think it would be worth having a discussion. I think it would be worth talking to some other community groups and changing the conversation about, does council have to do it on their own, or can we, invite other people? How can we invigorate it? I think that this would be an excellent opportunity for our events team to put something together. This would be a great first launch to see what that might look like, to get some games going on the beach.
Well, we cook.
Yeah, and just to have that community revitalization that we've been talking about, and that necessary need for connection. And one of the things that I have heard back to the DEI conversation is that more we got out after COVID, the tensions within the community simmered, and it's because we started bumping shoulders again. And I think Canada Day would be an excellent day for that.
Okay, so in terms of moving forward, what would we like to see?
I'd like to move that our events team puts together a suggested layout for the day.
Okay, do it.
Yes.
Okay, so are you seconding
Well, that would be a
motion?
second one for me. Like, I think that we have to have the event itself and direct staff to have that.
Okay, so you're seconding that motion? All right, any further discussion?
And I guess my question would be, when would that be a feasible report to have back, noting that we are May 2nd right now?
Yikes.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the best time for that would be the first meeting in June then.
Could be a bit late.
Yeah, that's a bit late.
Okay.
Could you
I think it's got to be done by the next meeting.
see if you can give her a little bit of a push? Just even just a rough layout.
And I happen to know that there have been council members who used to do it, so I think that there's probably some help.
Understood. And what's council's vision for this day then?
Barbecue on the beach, I think, is a
11 to
starting point.
2 p.m.
Yeah.
Maybe some games.
Barbecue, games on the beach, and then celebration. Typically, we've done cupcakes, which went over well.
Great to see the canoe race come back.
That's a different event.
That's a different event, yeah.
Could do it there, though.
Gotta get
That-
canoes.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's not-
So anyway, so there are just sort of some games on the beach, and typically we've just had like a hula hoop thing. We've had a dance off. We've done some bubbles, some bocce, like really
Fun stuff.
low key. And I'm going to guess that there's going to be some ideas that come out of May Day, out of Valley Pride, and how to recapture. We've done the limbo. Done it. So
Lots of fun things.
yeah,
down
so
there.
11 o'clock, and then maybe even just 12 till 1 games. So it is just a great short window where people can come and have some fun at the beach.
Stay as long as they want.
Yeah.
And it's typically been us flipping burgers, as
Yeah.
I understand it. And Shelley, I know you've organized some activities kind of thing, but mostly it's just people who are at the beach already
Yeah.
getting treated to a little more of a social event.
Yeah, it just had some structure so kids felt like they were a part of something and
Totally.
did some things.
I know I
So
previously
we
did
had the
talk to
motion.
Nick.
All those in favor? Okay.
Are you fine, Elsa? You got that?
Yes, I will certainly pass this on to Leanne, and we'll do our best to get this in for the next meeting on the 16th.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then we have 18.5.
Oh, sorry. Again, just keeping in mind that any recommendations from the committee, we do need to sort of come back around to it from
Yeah,
council.
to the regular.
Oh, okay.
So it won't even happen. This is why these meetings have got to be in advance of. Like this is an exact example of how we just, because if this meeting was beforehand, committee of the whole, it could have been brought forward to council. Anyway, we'll work around it.
Okay.
Okay.
Barbecue.
The barbecue, yes, that's right. So, and the events barbecue purchase, I personally support this. Like, we need a barbecue
We need
just
a
for these
barbecue.
kind of events. It makes total sense. That or a standard contract to rent one, if that's a better idea. I don't know what's the more,
If we're gonna use it for long term, I think we should go for contractor grade.
contractor.
We're more used dragging around the hair last.
So, to get that purchase, we need to have staff look for an appropriate model and bring it back to us at the next meeting.
Yes, and so I did shop around on some just different grades. I did speak with Councillor Sim on those. So if you're looking at, the contractor commercial grade barbecues that are sort of designed for that a rough and tough abuse, yeah, you are looking at $5,000. So keep that in mind when, if you want to make a recommendation on a limit to spend on these, because it will ultimately have to come out of council contingency for this.
So my comment about having that type of level of grade is it's often heavier, and with the heaviness, you actually it's a little, you're beating it up more because it's got to get in and out of trucks. So, and it's only used maybe 6 times a year, if that. So do we need to go that high? I just think that the most important thing is we have the three burner, so we can do up to sort of 24 burgers. Then we have a secondary stand-up one, and it's the flat top one that can kind of heat, and even having the heating portals on either one. But I think that, if we could speak to some of our local retailers to get some suggestions, I personally wouldn't want to go more than $3,000 for both.
Okay, so investigate with a maximum of $3,000 in mind for a community
For
barbecue.
2 barbecues. One is the portable one, and they're generally run about $500.
Yeah,
And then looking at
it's pretty good. My home barbecue was like $1,600. So
they've changed.
yeah, well, it depends what you buy, right? Like you can go to Canadian Tire and get a cheap home barbecue for $500 for sure. But I mean, like I said, I bought mine at Costco for my home, and it was like $1,600. So it just depends on what's out there.
Genuinely no clue.
I mean, I'm fine with
Explore.
yeah, maybe bring back some options. Is that a possibility? 3 price options or something like that, and we can discuss. Does that make sense?
Yeah, ostensibly, my personal recommendation would be for council to approve a budget up to for 2 barbecues, and then
Fill in the
staff
blanks.
just come back and purchase them.
Okay.
So up to what?
You want to go 3,500 then?
I'm comfortable. Yeah, let's say 3,500. We'll split the difference. Yeah, up to 3,500. Everyone happy with that?
Well,
That's when
That's an interesting point.
yes and no, but Rotary does a really good job about that kind of a program. So I make the motion to direct staff to look at purchasing 2 barbecues. One is a flat top and one is the propane, up to a maximum of $3,500. If quality investigations show that it needs more than that, to come back to council.
Absolutely, understood. And to be clear, funded from council contingency.
Funded from council contingencies.
I'll second that.
I'm excited. I've been wanting this for years.
I know.
All those
Miss-
in favor?
Miss Clasten, when we've been talking about it, it's because it's been on my wish list for like years, and I can never get it. And so it was so funny when you said to me, I've never gone to look at the minutiae of a barbecue. I'm like, oh yeah.
All right, and 18.5 potential spaces for community project murals.
Yes, so both, or basically 18.5 through to 18.7, our Director of Parks and Operations, Roger Mayer, had a pile of things to discuss, and he had to step out, unfortunately, and I don't know why.
If I could ask for a written report and have it tied into the recreation master or the parks master plan, maybe he would come. But I'm finding to help reference things, having some reports done is a helpful trigger for me.
Yes, absolutely. I think as far as the dog park was concerned, it was originally, I think there was a quote for $75,000 to do it at the site near the high school. Yeah. There were some other options as well, such as some of the grass space near the Ball Diamond or some of the district-owned properties down there. Mm-hmm. All of that tied back into basically being sent to review it for the Parks Master Plan, which was, I think, $100,000 or $150,000 to have that plan done. It's not in the current financial plan, and it would have to be the 2024 project if council would want to bring that back.
Yeah, I think, like you said, if we can get written reports on all this stuff, I think that we're talking 2024 at this point anyway, so that makes sense to me. But yeah, it would be nice to see some formal options, a little more investigated, and then we can maybe move forward.
Yeah, and I think that those plans are already on file, and I believe that there was some parkland dedication possibly by TMX associated with some of the options there. Mm-hmm. But this is exactly the point, is to be able to have the written report. It then goes to the committee of the whole, and then goes to council, and then it goes to budget. And we can get there by the summer. So this is an important conversation.
And did we not decide where we wanted the dog park? Up by the school?
I thought we had.
I thought
Yeah,
we
I
had
thought
decided
so
that because
too.
those other ones
We don't
were
know what
not-
his report was going to be.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that we did have that in our head.
So I move to table these items to the next council meeting and to add Parks, Recreation, and Culture Council of the Whole, or Committee of the Whole meeting
To the next council.
to the next council meeting, and for staff to provide a written report on the items.
Those 3 items.
Yep.
Yep,
Okay.
second.
Okay. Discussion.
Done.
All those in favor? Cool. All right. And then we have a recommendation to move out of the committee of the whole. Am I allowed to do that one?
No.
No? Can I get a recommendation?
Motion to move out of Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Okay, you guys, we're getting down to the,
Nitty gritty?
yeah. Where are we now?
18.9.
Oh, jeez.
Yes. So there are some recommendations from this meeting, as well as some recommendations from the previous committee that weren't were recommendations to council that weren't followed up on in council.
All right, so 18.9 recommendations from, yeah, go ahead.
I'll move the recommendation.
All right, that council adopt the anti-racial discrimination and anti-racism policy as presented. Moved by Councillor Herring, seconded by Councillor Matheson. Any discussion on that? I think we've had that earlier. All in favor? Motion carries. Recommendation from the April 18th, 2023 Community and Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee. Motion there that council instructs staff to integrate the 1.5 million BC Growing Communities funding into discussions in the upcoming Community and Economic Development and Infrastructure Committee for consideration. Moved by Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Matheson. Are there discussions on that? If I remember correctly, Director Klassen, had we allocated $100,000 from that fund already to something? Does that ring a bell to you, or no?
No.
Okay,
I don't
great.
think so.
There's been a lot of numbers today. All right. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Motion carries. Recommendation that council direct staff to move forward with arranging a meeting with the Trails Task Force, applicable engineers and council for a site visit regarding Dutch Lake line painting is possible.
Move that.
Moved by Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Herring. Any discussions on that?
Happening on Thursday.
Happening on Thursday at 9 a.m. All those in favor? Motion carries. Recommendation that council direct staff to defer yellow iris and iris remediation funding to the 2024 budget process. Make motion. Councillor Matheson, how do you feel about that? That's excellent. Seconded by. Can I attach?
I'm just not sure about this one.
Okay, then do you want to move it for discussion, or do you have questions?
No,
of staff
I'm just
before?
trying to recall where the conversation ended about this. Why is it being deferred to 2024?
Because we didn't have it in the budget.
Gotcha. Okay, yep. Oh, yeah, now
So
I'm
do you want to
remembering.
second it for discussion?
Now I'll second it. Yeah.
Okay, seconded for discussion. So discussion on the reasons, I wasn't at that meeting, but in the subsequent meeting that we had last time, that in order to do a proper work on Dutch Lake, it would be $30,000. That did not necessarily make it into the budget at this point in time, so we can look at it to be included for next year. But we didn't have a place for it. So, is it there?
Yep.
Great.
Makes sense.
All those in favor? Motion carries. Okay, recommendation.
Before we go through to 18.11, can we just swing back to the recommendations we made at the committee just previous, such as that the events team sort of look into a Canada Day meeting
To come back with
to
the
come
plan.
back with a plan for the Canada Day
Yep.
events, as well as recommending $3,500 for 2 barbecues to be up to 2 barbecues.
Up to 3,500 for 2
Thank you.
barbecues, yeah.
So just those 2 recommendations that we made.
Do you, we can add them now?
Yes, we can add them now. Just after, now that we're in council, we can add those.
How do you do that without it being on the agenda?
Okay.
Like, Like, I don't think we can. That should have been, we should have done that earlier from there.
Yeah, we should have introduced it as a late item at the start of the meeting, right? Yeah. So I don't think we can. I would like to, but
Me too, but no, we're not doing that. We do have a special one that we can add those to.
We could do that there, couldn't
Yeah.
we? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a good idea. That's
Okay,
what we should do.
but everybody, lesson learned, how we move things a little faster is we have to pay attention to the whole.
Thinking
Yeah.
about what we're going to be doing later in the meeting.
So because we didn't add these two recommendations, or I don't even, and Mr. Prime, maybe if you could even research it, how would we bring something, like it was brought out from the committee of the whole,
Yes.
right? But those other items weren't brought out for committee on the whole, so they didn't make the agenda. So how can we articulate things that might come up from the Parks and Rec? How do we get it on here if we've already passed the agenda?
Yep, absolutely.
Could we, when we're saying something, whatever it is, including late items, could we put in any recommendations coming from committee meetings without having to specify anything? Can we be that?
Yeah, I'd have to research to look into it then and see
Okay.
what the best way of bringing them out.
Ms.
Just so that
Klassen?
then that sort of opens it up so
Yeah.
we could do it.
Director Klassen's thoughts from you?
My thoughts are that we will do the research to make sure that we're,
Yeah.
I thought maybe an open item might work, but
So, for example, you know, that somebody's put the recommendation to adopt the anti-racial discrimination. So somehow that came forward. So how do we keep a flow like that? Or can committee of the whole make a motion to bring it to council? And then how does that work?
I think the difference is, from what I can see, the difference is there was already a decision proposed in committee of the
Yes.
whole for that policy.
Well, we made the assumption.
However, the discussion happened about Canada Day and barbecues, and we didn't, staff didn't anticipate the conversation
Right.
or the
Yeah. And
decision,
you
so
probably
staff
couldn't
had a hard
have, yeah.
time putting in a recommendation, right?
Right. So, but if we had committee of the whole meetings in advance of the council meeting,
Yes.
then it could be, and then that could have been a late item. Anyway.
Yes.
Do that, but
Correct.
that's pressure inducing. Believe me, that's pressure inducing.
Oh, well, sometimes it works. All right, thank
Sometimes
you.
it does.
Thank you for your research on that, because that's a great question. Anyway, we are moving on to the recommendation that council direct staff to disperse an amount of $88,923.04 to be granted to Raft River Parents Advisory Committee with their matching funds of $114,551 for the Raft River Elementary School outdoor classroom and learning space. On this, I just do want to make an amendment that it is not to Raft River Parents Advisory Committee that the check would be written. It would actually be to Raft River School in SD 73. I just happen to know that through being the school board trustee, the application was made by the teacher and also the principal. So it was not through the PAC. They've been a fundraiser element, but it is going to SD 73. Do we have a copy of that letter?
So should it read that the council directs staff to disperse $88,000, like $88,923 to the school district 70?
Raft River Elementary, SD 73. I just do want to check. That was my understanding from the school district, but I'm wondering if
So I've
we.
seen the applications, and I don't believe that's how they came in. I believe they came in as Raft River PAC.
Yeah, they did.
Do we have a copy of that? Because I just want to make sure that we've got this.
Issued a check to the PAC, to
Great.
from before,
yeah.
from the grant, the district of Clearwater grant program.
Yeah, I think I don't. Yeah, so just check because it had come up through SD 73.
But would it not be because the matching funds we're issuing to them and then they're issuing
The
to
PAC,
SD
the
73?
PAC issues it to SD 70. That's why I'm trying to
Maybe
make sure
that's
who
the way
who we're
it's-
writing it to. But do we have a copy of the application through to Wellsbury Community Forest?
Director Klassen's looking it up, yeah.
Okay. And not our grant and aid, but to the Wellsbury Community Forest or how it came in? Yeah, see, it would have come through the Wellsbury Community Forest meeting.
Yep.
But I,
We should have the information, that's just the point, is that this is our, yeah, that's true. It should follow all the state policies. And we should have that on our records. And council should actually have to look at it. All I remember is there were, delegation.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure if they had it. Why don't staff
So-
review the
so why don't we amend,
application and we will.
well, why don't we amend it, and just say, to, so if we can do it to the, monitoring body of the outdoor classroom project.
I know I wrote a check for that.
Yeah, because I think that they were doing the fundraising to create the matching funds, but the school had actually applied, so I think that's where it went. So I don't want to hold this up, like I.
No, but could we bring it to the special meeting that we're having?
Well, but I
It's
think
only-
that there's
it's only
another.
on Friday.
Go ahead.
What the application to the community forest said here, so.
Yeah, it says Radford Elementary School.
Yes, there we go. So that's exactly it. And who signed it?
I can't read those signatures.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Great. So it does say.
Lead and school principal. Did
Okay,
sign it.
then the motion,
Principal is who?
Carmela Matthew, or it might have been Lori Bradstock. Okay, so we've got the answer, so it goes to Raft River Elementary, SD 73. So that would be the friendly amendment. So that council directs staff to disperse an amount of $88,923.04 to be granted to Raft River Elementary.
So moved.
Well, we'll just do it, yeah. And they're matching funds for the Raft River Elementary School outdoor classroom learning space. Okay, I've got a motion by Councillor Herring, seconded by Councillor Matheson. Any discussion on that? From what I understand, having spoken to the principal, they're excited to break ground. And as soon as they get this set, the finances, they can speak to operations out of Kamloops and actually be arranging for a groundbreaking and hoping to invite Simp to do a blessing of the land and that. So it's exciting. Anyway,
Great. Who seconded? I got Councillor Herring first.
Councillor
I moved it.
Matheson?
Councillor Matheson.
is Councillor Matheson?
Oh, you might not be allowed to.
I'll second it.
Doesn't matter, we
It
don't have
doesn't
quorum.
matter, we don't have a quorum.
Okay.
If a councillor has to remove themselves due to a conflict of interest, the quorum actually changes. So it is reduced by one at that stage.
We're still at
getting
50%.
Yeah.
The only thing I do have a question is because the services of Ken Matheson were hired by Raft River PAC and not Raft River Elementary.
It's all for the same thing,
Yeah,
same project.
it's the
Okay.
same project.
And it seemed as a pecuniary interest, yeah.
Why don't we bring it back on Friday?
Friday.
Okay, yeah.
Let's bring it
Yeah.
back.
We have to, get that motion out officially.
We'll get someone
So
move it.
motion is defeated because we don't have quorum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Defeated. Okay.
you are such a troublemaker.
Good thing you caught that. I totally, until you said it, I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, I may not understand bylaws, but I got a couple of other things, so. Do we have any correspondence? Correspondent information only. That brings us to notice of motions, page 136. Page 136. All right. So just the introduction to this. I've sat in this at council for a long, long time. Originally, my term was having evening meetings. I certainly was in favor of moving them to the evening in response to the community. We have had 6 months of trial, and I am delighted that we certainly had some audience participation, but at the costs incurred in terms of staff time and consultant time, I don't find it's an effective measure. And I think that I'm moving to go back to the 2 o'clock. And with that, also working with staff to try and get the live streaming. I really appreciate that the community wants to be engaged. I have found through SD 73, some of the other committees, is that the live streaming is a way for people to be involved. I look at the last meeting and the fellow who had wanted to speak, if he had waited, he would have waited till 10 o'clock. Potentially to be able to have his input. So I see where there's room to, strengthen our engagement and our opportunity, but I think that this is a first step certainly for our staff and for the function of the community. So with that, now because this is my motion, but being the mayor, do I need to have somebody else move this?
No, I don't believe so. I believe you can read your own notice of motion. I don't think it would work otherwise.
Okay.
So with this, with the notice of motion, have you already made the motion?
This is why, that's why you all got it.
You have to read it though.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now, yeah. So whereas the District of Clearwater previously changed its meeting time from 2 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. in an effort to encourage increased public attendance. Whereas the change in meeting time has not resulted in significant increase in public attendance, contrary to the original intent. Whereas the current meeting time of 6:30 p.m. has inadvertently created added stress on staff time and scheduling, as well as incurred additional costs related to professional services and consultants required at council meetings, thereby negatively impacting municipal operations and staff's ability to carry out their duties effectively. Furthermore, it is important for the District of Clearwater to maintain a meeting schedule that is both accessible to the public and conducive to the efficient and effective functioning of council and staff. Therefore, be it resolved that the District of Clearwater hereby change its meeting times from 6:30 p.m. back to the original time of 2 p.m. effective immediately. Be it further resolved that the District of Clearwater shall continue to explore ways to increase public attendance and engagement in its meetings, including the use of live streaming council meetings on digital platforms, and shall periodically review and, if necessary, adjust meeting times and formats in order to achieve this goal. And be it further resolved that the District of Clearwater shall provide adequate notice of the new meeting time to the public and stakeholders through its official communications channel, including websites, social media platforms, and local media outlets.
I'll second that motion.
Discussion?
Yay.
Right.
All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Oh, man. So relieved.
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Herring, regular council meeting, notice of motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion. Whereas Mayor and Council received a letter from a citizen of Clearwater dated April 12th, 2023. This letter contained valuable public input, but unfortunately also contained discriminatory and hateful comments about valued and celebrated members of our community. And whereas the District of Clearwater remains strongly committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and promotes the celebration and acceptance of all races, genders, and sexual orientations in our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council draft a letter of response to the author with a letter affirming the district's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that Council direct staff to disperse funds from Council contingency in the amount of $2,500 to the Valley Pride Society in order to help them in their mission of making Clearwater more socially inclusive.
So I have a small amendment to make, and I think just because of what we've discussed in the anti-racism is that $2,500 from council contingency to go to the diversity, equity, and inclusion to support developing a library, and as we heard, like a QR code. So how can we broaden it to put that message on just a community organization volunteer who's already working hard doing lots of things? I'm wondering if that money could be dispersed through the diversity, equity, and inclusion and finding another use. I think the intent is an imperative.
Yeah, like as I'd be open to the friendly amendment, absolutely, because I think it's less about who specifically gets this money, more about what the money is for.
That's right.
And I think absolutely, yeah, and I think that's it. If we can put it towards diversity, equity, and inclusion in that broader context, and that allows us to help multiple
The
organizations,
community learning.
then that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd be open to that.
So good. Council contingent the amount of $2,500 to diversity, equity, inclusion working group.
And the rest of it works.
Would would someone like to second the friendly amendment?
I'll second.
Thank you. And then having done that, would someone like to second the original motion?
Oh, now the amended motion.
Yes.
I will second the amended motion. Just to be clear, if you've got it, to make sure, is that the council directs staff to disperse funds from the council contingency in the amount of $2,500 to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Working Group for the education, for community education. Okay,
And
that's my seconder, so.
okay, so for discussion, are we allowed to ask staff questions at this point or?
Nope.
No, okay. So for further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Motion carries. I guess I should have done that, sorry, Bill. There ends the end of the meeting, except for the fabulous part of, oh, we missed that. We went, oh no, we haven't. We're right here. Public questions and comment on agenda items. I am so thankful for all of you guys. Okay. All right, well, the TRU group left, so any questions from you, kind sir?
No, nothing's on the agenda here, or nothing to discuss.
Okay.
No items.
No items, and yet it was so fulsome. Okay. All right. Here ends just a motion to adjourn. Okay, and we're done. Thank you very, very much all, and thank you to anybody who watches this.